Hello and welcome to another Solihull podcast. My name is Claire Bullivant from the Solihull Observer, and I'm joined in the studio today with Eleanor Miles, who is going to be chatting through some of this week's biggest Solihull news stories with me, and also about her late father's photo exhibition that is currently on at the Courtyard Gallery at the Core right now and running until the 21st of October. Eleanor, welcome to the studio.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Pleasure. It's so nice for you to be here with me today chatting about the news, and also your incredible father. I've been through some of his photography this morning, and what a man.
Yeah, I mean, the body of work that he has is quite incredible, really. I think he'd been creative for all of his adult life. He worked in education as a teacher for all of his adult life, and then as an art teacher. So he was just always making, whether or not it was painting or drawing or photography. I don't think he had a day out without a camera around his neck.
Well, he was a Solihull man. Your family's from Solihull. You were born and bred there. And very sadly, he passed away in January 2018. And is it you and your mum and your family who've got together to put this exhibition on at the Core to celebrate his memory and just share his incredible work with the world? Because it is incredible. That's
right, yeah. My mum's done a really wonderful job of collecting it all together and making sure it looks wonderful at the gallery, and my sister Amy as well. My dad, like I say, had been taking photographs all of his life, and then became ill at the end of 2016 and found that his fine motor skills were affected. So he had a number of grade 4 brain tumours, and that's subsequently what he died from. But he was finding it more and more difficult to use his hands, to stand for long periods of time, which obviously when you're using a really heavy camera really affects what you're doing. So rather than just packing it in and not bothering to make anything else, he thought, I'll just find a new way of doing it. And this is what these photographs that are on display at the moment at the Core are all about. So it's a series of panographs, which is like a long, thin image, kind of like a collage of photographs, but one digital image. And he did hundreds of them whilst he was poorly, and my mum selected and printed I think the best of the best.
And can people buy them?
They can, yes. So all of the photographs are for sale, the ones that are framed. There's also going to be some unframed prints available to purchase. So the sale of the unframed prints, all of the proceeds will go to Marie Curie Hospice in Solihull, and the framed ones, 25% will go to Marie Curie Hospice.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And tell us about your wonderful dad, because I was reading through his website and I love his descriptions. At the end of this section, we'll end on his thing that he wrote about Great Britain and everything, because I think that's a lovely way of finishing off. But tell us, he was obviously an incredible, not only talented, but just a lovely human being.
Yeah, I should probably say his name, shouldn't I?
Absolutely,
about that.
Yeah.
It's Tony Warren. So like I say, there's me and my sister and my mum. They lived in Balsall Common. My mum still lives in Balsall Common, so a local guy. Worked in the Midlands in education for children with special educational needs for all of his career. And was just a very creative person. I think really helped push me and my sister in towards working in creative industries. We really loved art growing up. I mean, the weekends, we used to go into his art room, and you should have seen it. It was full of things he'd made, things the kids have made, just a really creative soul, I think, really. And I think when he was poorly, knowing he was poorly and what sort of treatment he was having and the type of brain tumours he had, we sort of knew the route we were going down in terms of him, his motor skills changing. I think that's quite hard when you're a creative person, because you're sort of going from somebody who can use their hands and uses their hands to make things and has done all of their life, to literally not being able to do it is quite shocking, really.
It must be horrible, really horrible.
So,
did he do it for as long as obviously he could?
He did. And then literally just had to adapt the type of equipment he was using. So instead of using a really big, heavy, fancy camera, which, by the way, there are loads of, and my mum, I think, was very patient and, oh, you've bought another camera, have you?
Was that his thing?
Oh, another tripod. Yeah, we need another one of those in our house, don't we? And had to just change and adapt to using a much smaller digital camera, sometimes even using a phone, digital phone. So all of these images are digital images, but they're so bright, they're so abstract. Although I think if you're familiar with Birmingham and the surrounding areas, you'll definitely still spot landmarks and architecture that you'll think, oh, I recognise that.
Because on the website, which is print1.photo, you can go through and he's put them into sections. There's a Birmingham one, there's a New York one, there's a Seasons one. They're all very incredible, but I love the Birmingham one. I'm originally from Birmingham, so those Birmingham ones, but they're so clever because it's like the reflections in the other buildings, and I love the black and white ones. It just brings, I mean, I think he says in his description of that section, you either love it or you hate it. Birmingham's a bit like Marmite, and he loves it, but he's shown the best of Brum and done us proud there. But I also I'm obsessed with his British ones, like the British flag, which is all crumpled up, and also the beach huts going alongside. That's the most stunning one. If I could afford it, I'd probably come and buy that one. But yeah, I've actually just finished doing a photography course. So, I mean, it was a total beginner's course, so I can't even pretend to be able to be at the standard your dad was.
Well, oh gosh, I'm not. I wish I had a tiny bit of his skill, really. I'm the sort of point with my camera phone. That's my level of photography.
Well, they taught us how to use the whole aperture and, change all that. But to be honest, no, I still just put it on automatic and take 100 shots and one might be good. But I so now have a refound appreciation for proper photographers.
Yeah.
Because
well, that skill is kind of getting lost, isn't it? And I think that's what's interesting about a lot of the work my dad did over the years. So he would have started at a time when you had to develop your photos in a dark room. There was no digital photography. That's brand new, isn't it? Well, it is to me. It's probably not brand new now, is it? And so, like I say, when we were growing up and we'd be in his art room with him and go along at the weekends, and he had a dark room and he knew everything there was to know about how to literally develop your film and how to get the best out of your photograph. And so I think it's interesting because he then obviously went on to using the digital image. So he never really stood still in terms of the type of things that he was creating. He was sort of changing with the times, but also changing with his abilities, which is really quite clever, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would he be thinking of you guys putting this on?
I think he'd probably be a bit embarrassed about me talking about it in the radio. Not that he was shy, but he would have just thought, oh, no, don't do that. It was quite self-deprecating. But I think he'd be pleased. I think he wanted an exhibition of this work. I think it was quite important to him that he'd managed to carry on doing it whilst he'd been poorly, and actually lots of the images that he took were sometimes taken from the car window route from home to the QE where he was having his treatment. So it sort of documented it in a way. I think that's what made it that little bit more important, this body of work, in terms of it being the pictures that he made whilst poorly and the pictures that, like I say, sort of document that journey. So they're quite special, I think, and obviously they're the last things that he made. So,
and I think I read his very first image was when he was 5 years old and he was with his family sailing to New Zealand through the Panama Canal. So from 5 years old to documenting his journey right till the very end.
Absolutely.
What an incredible special thing that you guys have as well as a family to...
Oh, they're lovely to have. I mean, my poor mum, the house is cluttered with them, but I think she's pleased to have them, really. And also to share them with people, because we've got a lot of family and friends coming along to see this exhibition. It's obviously important to them as well as us. But the fact that it's a public exhibition and that anybody can come and see them, I mean, that gives you quite a sense of pride, doesn't it, really? And like I say, my mum's done a lovely job of putting them on display, and it looks really professional.
And how have you chosen the best ones then?
Well, do you know what? I haven't been involved in the selection.
That was all your mum.
That's my mum,
That must have been quite a job to do that.
Yeah.
But as I say, I love his wording as well. He writes this incredible piece for the project called Genuinely British.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to read a bit of it. He was saying, so he obviously wrote this a couple of years ago, but he's saying, as a country in particular and union in general, we have of late dealt ourselves severe self-inflicted body blows. Granted, politics is the play preserve of the few who purport to understand the world and the people of this unique nation. And he goes on to talk about the opportunities that we've got in Great Britain and how incredible our country is. He's got an amazing way with words, and that just sums up the whole situation at the moment. So I can't wait to see that selection in real life, actually in the theatre, of what he is encompassing Britishness with. So, what an incredible man. And I'm honoured to meet you and have you on this podcast to talk about his works. So tell us where, when, how, and...
So it's on at the moment. It runs until the 21st of October at the Courtyard the Courtyard Gallery at the Core Theatre in Solihull.
Which used to be the library, didn't it?
That's right, yeah. So it's just outside of Touchwood. So if you're popping in to do some shopping, it's just across the way. It's free to come and see the exhibition. So it's open during the library hours. And yes, anybody's welcome. And if there are any inquiries about wishing to buy them or see other bits of his work, then the contact details for my mum are there as well. And we're hoping to raise some money for Marie Curie Hospice in Solihull, which is where my dad spent his final few weeks, and the staff there and the facilities are totally amazing and deserve all of the money that can be given to them. So we're hoping to do our little bit for that. Yeah.
Amazing. And do we know roughly how much the photos are if we do want to buy the framed ones, or are they all different prices?
They're all different prices, but I think the unframed ones start from as little as about £15 to £20.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it should be quite accessible and people hopefully can find something to suit their budget.
Oh, well done for, doing this for your dad.
Thank you.
And he was obviously an incredible man, and I can't wait to go and see the exhibition myself. And if anyone does want to get a preview, do go on to the website, which is print1.photo, and there's a selection of his work on there as well. Thank you so much, Eleanor. You're going to stick around though, aren't you? Because we're going to be back talking about some of this week's biggest Solihull news stories.
Yes, indeed.
You're listening because you have impeccable taste.
And welcome back. I'm still with Eleanor Miles, and we're going to now take you through some of this week's biggest local news stories, starting with our front page news story this week in the Solihull Observer. And it's a story that Solihull Council has responded to climate change concerns by agreeing a new target to become carbon neutral by 2030. This is good news, isn't it?
This sounds like brilliant news. I think we all try and do our own little bit, don't we, to try and make the world a better place. We're all doing our bits of recycling and, cutting down on our energy usage and that sort of thing. So it's great to see it coming from the top, I think.
Absolutely. And I was talking to someone who was actually at that council meeting, apparently, and they were saying it was the first time ever that Conservatives, Labour, Lib Dem, Green, they all just agreed, and they all just basically said, let's get on with it. Let's do it. We're all in favour of this. Nobody argued, nobody caused a problem.
I think it sounds like Solihull Council are leading the way. I think we could do with that happening at higher levels of government, couldn't we? We need everybody on the same page for it to work.
Absolutely. And obviously at the moment, this whole social climate and the damaging our planet is massive news. We've got all these protesters all over the world making a difference. And I was looking actually at the tables about Britain, and do you know what? We're actually a pretty good, clean, efficient nation compared to a lot of the world. So I'm so proud of us, and it is just a really nice thing that these things are happening, and our councils are...
Yeah, it's baby steps, isn't it? I know it seems like the small things that we do don't make a big difference, but if everybody starts making those small changes, it will eventually lead to something better, surely.
Absolutely. Well, I've lived in America for the last sort of 12 years, in Los Angeles, and they're very green over there. Yeah. And every year I come back and I start, literally I'll go through my mum and dad's when I'm staying with them for Christmas, whatever, and I go through their cupboards and I replace everything with eco-friendly washing powder and eco-friendly washing up liquid, and, I lecture them all about throwing bleach down the toilets and everything. And my mum and dad now are really good. But it has surprised me that British, even though we are very good on the table up there, lots of people just don't know the little things that you can do. Like, you don't, in California, you don't just throw bleach down your loo. Yeah. That's going to end up in the oceans and affecting the fish and the animals and the ecosystem and everything. But it's all just education, isn't it? People don't know.
Yeah, and like I was saying before, I feel like it has to come from a higher level. There has to be some organisation to it, which at the moment doesn't feel like there is to me. I feel like we all do our own little separate bits, which is great and wonderful, but for it to come from a higher council level with everybody agreeing about the way forward, it's going to be brilliant.
Absolutely. And even who's the young Greta Thunberg? Yeah. She's just leading the way as well, isn't she? It's
so great for young people to have a voice, I think. I know that some people from certain generations roll their eyes a bit about it, but I think she's wonderful. I think
Me too.
For teenagers to have somebody to look up to, think you don't have to be somebody in charge. You don't have to be the Prime Minister to make a difference. Everybody can make a difference, and she's absolutely leading the way. She's doing a brilliant job.
Absolutely. So yeah, well, as a newspaper group, we are very aware. We have been for a long time. All our papers, we pay a bit extra to have our papers printed on crop paper, which actually is good for the environment when it's growing. So it's rotated like a crop. We don't cut down trees or anything there. So it's actually apparently our crops that our newspapers come from. They are like a crop, and they produce more oxygen when they're growing. And
that's amazing to hear.
Yeah, and quite a few other British newspapers are also doing that now. Yeah, so if you own a business or anything out there and you have any tips that your business locally does in Solihull, let us know, because we might like to do a story on you. And everything helps us. And as we say, it's education.
Sure, yeah. And you want, as a consumer, you want to be choosing those particular brands as well, don't you? Like if you know the one that you're working with or the one that you're buying is helping the environment, you're going to buy that brand. Absolutely. I would pay that little bit extra for it to be better for the environment.
100%. And also supporting local. We're about to start actually a support your local businesses sort of campaign in our paper, and it is all about, buying local cheeses, local supporting your local farm.
It kind of takes you back to like that market town feel as well, doesn't it? Knowing where your produce comes from and knowing the people you're buying it from as well. Absolutely.
And Skets at the end of every month, they put on a fantastic trade and local artisan fair, and they have craftsmen and everything come through, and everything at those markets comes within a 30-mile radius, which I think is spectacular. So if you're thinking about Christmas presents, if you're super organised, not like me, and start shopping early, do check out Skets. You've got a great one coming up soon. So keep your eye out for that. On to the next story. More great news, and this is West Midlands Police are set to employ 366 new officers under the new government plans. I didn't think this was going to happen. Boris,
I have to say, I took it with a pinch of salt.
Boris promised us 20,000 new police officers across the country, and it all starts. It's happening. Yeah.
Well, that's
great news,
isn't it? I think it's probably reassuring for that sort of local presence that perhaps people feel that they miss at the moment. That Bobby on the beat kind of presence. I hope it materialises and that it becomes that sort of thing for people, because I think it helps make people feel a bit more involved, with their community. And
100%. We had Melanie Palmer on, who's the CEO of Solihull Bid, a few weeks ago, and she was talking about how the Solihull Bid have basically had to get together and fund two. They're not police officers, but they're kind of like security guards for the high street, who are a great presence, and they're doing an amazing job. They pop in and they're dealing with like petty thefts and keeping people safe and everything. But it shouldn't be up to the councils or these Solihull bids to do, should it? It should be. We should have a Bobby on the beat actually there.
And it's those little like petty crimes that you're talking about that make an impact on people's day-to-day lives, isn't it? I know there's big stuff going on and we need our security forces to deal with that, but that presence on the high street to make people feel safe in their community is important, I think. So I really hope it happens.
Yeah, well, apparently it's all happening, and basically it's happening immediately. Jay Singh Sohal, the Conservative candidate to be the next West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner, has said confirmation that the West Midlands is to receive 366 new police officers in year one of extra investment, and it's happening now, and it's a very welcome boost for a force that's stretched, but they're really positive. This is great news. So very, very happy about that. Staying on the whole police theme, we're going to now talk about, have you heard about this disruption between the Warwickshire Police and the West Mercia Police?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Yeah, it's so it all started, if you haven't heard, listeners, since 2012, Warwickshire Police Force and West Mercia Police Force joined forces, and they've been sharing services, including IT and forensics. So this all happened in 2012. All went swimmingly for the first year or two, but then cracks began to appear in the marriage. And I think it was West Mercia Police saying that they were subsidising the Warwickshire Force and paying more into the pot and not getting as much out. So obviously, arguments began to ensue, and they decided on having a divorce. I know, it's all been a bit...
Sounds costly, doesn't it, when you say the word divorce?
I know, exactly. Well, this is it. Well, it was all supposed to be happening right now, but our Home Secretary, Priti Patel, stepped in last night, and she is saying, right, you guys, sort it out. You're not doing anything for 6 months. So she's come in and,
I mean, there are probably bigger fish to fry at the moment, aren't there?
I think this is exactly it, isn't it? But she was saying it's going to be too disruptive and we just need to carry on going. And
I think trying to keep everything as calm as possible and getting back on track is probably a good plan, isn't it?
I think so too, yeah. But it is interesting. I didn't realise that these sort of things actually happened. You know, you just assume that everything's one, but apparently each area of the country is very on its, you know, it's kind of on its own.
It's not something you ever think of, is it really?
You just assume that everything's under one roof, but no, it's very departmentalised, I think is the word, isn't it? Which I guess is a good thing for control and monitoring and effectiveness and everything, but it's funny in a way when you start hearing that cracks are appearing and they're not getting on.
I know, it just seems like it could potentially be a waste of money and everybody's time and effort for there to be that sort of bad feeling between the two departments. I feel like I say, there's other stuff going on at the moment, and we're probably better off just concentrating our efforts on the work.
They should have just asked us, shouldn't they, Eleanor? We could have told
probably
them.
A really good idea that I'm not involved in that.
Moving on to our next story. It's World Homeless Day today.
Right, okay.
So the whole world, we're looking at our poor homeless people. But in Solihull, we've been doing something a little bit different. And it's all part of this Solihull Bids initiative. We keep mentioning Solihull Bid. They're so incredible. They just do so much for our town. But they invested in this change into action plan. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, but it's instead of giving money to homeless people actually on the street, it's going to change into action, and you can give funds online or into some of the shops that are collecting money, and then that money goes directly into the organisations like the homeless shelters and food banks and just things like that. So I think the belief is that some of the homeless people on the street collect money and it goes on to drugs or drink, or it's not actually helping them. So what do we think about this?
Well, I think there seems to be more than ever. You see people on the streets, don't you, at the moment? And I think anything that you can do to help them get back on their feet, whether or not it's mental health issues that they need help with or just that they need somewhere to stay, I'd be really happy to see a more formal way of being able to help them. Because I don't know about you, but I want to help people when I see them. I'm desperate to help them, particularly when I've got like my kids with me, because it's quite a hard thing to explain to children, isn't it? Why is that person there?
Yeah.
You know, you want to help them. You want your children to grow up in a society where they see you helping people that need that extra leg up. But also, I do in the back of my mind question whether or not it's the right thing to do to directly give them cash, because you do hear this, don't you?
You don't know if they're
You don't know what the best
or...
thing to do is, and you're trying to do your best to help someone. So I would love to see a more formal way of being able to give, and knowing it's going to go directly back into your local community.
Well, this change into action, it sounds incredible. And we've just learnt that the council has already accommodated 3 local people as part of the Solihull Housing First programme. So it's part of a wider regional Housing First pilot. But it's working. 3 people have already, come off the street in Solihull. And I was talking to another councillor, and apparently he was saying in Solihull there are usually only between 2 and 4 people who regularly sleep rough. And the council is regularly in contact with them. So a lot of the people who come in, they're kind of like homeless tourists, they call them. They'll come in from other towns and pretend to be homeless, collecting money. And
it's shocking to hear, isn't it, really?
It is shocking. And you just don't know. I think there was a documentary on TV recently, wasn't there, where somebody in London did it. And he was... I think his name was Ed Stafford, and he ended up going and he went and spent the night at the guy's flat. He'd actually got a free council flat, and he was collecting
that's unbelievable.
I know. So it is. I think this is an incredible initiative, and if anyone out there wants to give money to the homeless, obviously to the people who really deserve it, and get to the root cause rather than encouraging maybe drug taking or drinking, etc., do check out the website. It's changeintoaction.org.uk. And with the cold weather coming as well, if you do spot a rough sleeper, who you think might need help, please contact StreetLink. Their website is streetlink.org.uk, because that's one thing I was thinking, that this cold weather, it's...
Yeah, and do you know what? I don't think I'd know who to contact, actually. So that's really useful to know, because you can have really immediate worries about people that you feel you need to discuss there and then, can't you?
Absolutely.
If it's freezing outside, it must just be so awful for them.
Again. Well, we're nearly coming to the end of our time here, Eleanor. But one final thing, I want you to guess who we've just found out is turning on the Christmas lights this year in Chelmsley Wood.
Wow, who could it be? I'm excited.
Every year they get bigger and better. We've got none other than Phil Mitchell coming to town.
Way. Not Phil Mitchell.
Steve McFadden, we've just found out, is turning on the Chelmsley Wood Christmas lights. Do you know, I used to live with a famous EastEnder when I was living in Los Angeles.
Did you?
I did. Do you watch EastEnders?
I'm kind of a classic EastEnders watcher. Maybe not so hot on the last couple of years, but so Phil Mitchell. I mean, I know he's still in it, but you know, like the Phil and Grant era. That's kind of my era.
My flatmate for a while was Michael Greco. Beppe.
No way.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to pick up the phone and go, Beppe, do you turn on...
Do you call him Beppe?
Yeah. Do you turn on Christmas lights around the UK? Because I think that's funny that they get to turn on Christmas lights. I'd love to do that.
Do you think they have like a big red button or a plunger or something?
Yeah, they do.
That's
I've been there before for these Christmas lights. It's a big thing.
That's really exciting.
It's a big deal. So yeah, hopefully we'll get an interview from Phil Mitchell for the Solihull Observer as well.
I wonder what he thinks of Chelmsley Wood, if he's ever been before.
Oh, we've got the best shopping. Touchwood's my favourite. I love the Touchwood shops. That's just my dream shopping destination.
Yes.
But Chelmsley Wood is incredible as well. We do have the best shopping in Solihull.
He's going to love it, isn't he?
He's going to love it, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Solihull podcast, Eleanor. You've been a dream guest, and we can't wait to go and see your father's incredible exhibition.
Thank you so much.
Happening at the moment, and thank you. You'll have to come on again.
I'd love to, yes.